Federal authorities arrested 6 men on Monday night for allegedly conspiring to attack Fort Dix in New Jersey in order to kill as many U.S. soldiers as possible. 4 of the 6 were of Albanian descent, and they're suspected of being Islamic fundamentalists. Their attack was in the planning stages, reportedly 17 months along, but the attack was not considered imminent. According to the White House spokesman Tony Snow, it does not appear as though their plans were being directed from any international terrorist organization. 1 of the men is a U.S. citizen, 2 have been living here legally, but 3 of the plotters and their brothers are illegal immigrants. Our next guest believes their immigration status is a key lesson of this bust. Joining me now is Republican Congressman from Colorado and presidential hopeful Tom Tancredo. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure as always.
So isn't the lesson here that their religion, their perverted brand of Islam, that's the threat?
6 men, 4 of them from former Yugoslavia, were arrested last night on charges they plotted to attack the Fort Dix Army Base in New Jersey and kill as many soldiers as possible. Those were their words. The suspects appeared in court today and were described by the FBI as Islamic radicals. Are these people, what was their motivation? Were they angry about our action in Kosovo? A lot of them come from the former Yugoslavia. They're Islamic. I thought we were on their side in that war. We were looking out for them. They should be grateful to us. Were they just stupid?
No question that these guys were radicalized. They were caught in terms of the possessions with the last will and testament of 2 of the 9/11 hijackers, pictures of bin Laden, and sort of calls to holy war and jihad.
What were these men up to?
Well, there's no question, Chris, they weren't just talking. They were training. They were trying to acquire advanced weapons, AK-47s and M16s. They had done surveillance and were talking about targets not only at Fort Dix, but also Dover Air Force Base and the Philadelphia Coast Guard Station.
We don't know whether it was driving them was Iraq. We don't know whether it was Saudi Arabia, our deal over there. We don't have any idea, do we? You don't have any idea what made them want to commit. It was a suicide attack, right?
Well, no, it's not clear. They thought that they could go in and kill as many U.S. soldiers as they could, but we don't know enough yet from the complaint as to whether or not they thought it would be a suicide mission. That's not clear.
But according to the reports, they were studying and being influenced by these suicide videos of the people who attacked us 9/11.
That's right, absolutely.
Do you believe, as a presidential hopeful, as someone running for the Republican nomination, that we ought to intentionally restrict immigration from countries that have a high incidence of Islamic extremism?
Yes, I do. It's ludicrous to me that we have been so lax, and what is it going to take? Is it when one of these guys does, in fact, get the job done, will then somebody care about the issue of borders? I hope we don't win this issue on the basis of an incident. I know it's a very controversial thing, but you know, you also have to look at what's happening in the rest of the world. Look what's happening in Europe.
Islamic group holding a news conference today denouncing the alleged bias attack on a Muslim woman in New Jersey. The group is worried about backlash after the arrest of the Fort Dix terror suspects.
Religion is part of this story. I can't imagine anyone covering, the IRA versus the Brits without mentioning Catholic and Protestant. And you can't cover Israel versus Palestinians without mentioning Judaism. Religion is part of the story, and it belongs in the story.
Border security, it's not an anti-Mexican issue, it's an anti-terrorism issue. Congressman, are you surprised at this?
No, sir, I am not. I am happy, of course, about the fact that we were able to stop it, but it is get used to this idea that there are people in this country who have come here illegally or who have come into the country legally and overstayed their visas, who are therefore illegally in the country today.
Look at this from a business angle for a moment. Islam has a significant branding problem. And when an organization, business, movement, or political party has a branding problem, it has to be solved from within. There's only an overreaction if there's something that they're overreacting to. The greatest enemy of Islam in the world today isn't right-wing talk show hosts or the media reporting when Muslim terrorists actually are Muslim. The greatest threat to Islam's brand in the world today is that radical fringe of people who commit violent jihad in the name of Islam. Islam has to solve this problem for itself.
Get used to the idea that these people are here and that some of them are looking to do very bad things to us.
If you don't like the story that's being reported, don't criticize the reporting, change the story. Islam has to change the story. Christianity had a conflict like this. You know, there was 100 years of fighting between Catholic and Protestant, persecution of Jews. We worked it out theologically.
Yeah, it may even come in under some sort of status, refugee status or something like that, because as I understand it, they're Albanians. There was, in fact, a refugee policy there that allowed a lot of them.
And I personally don't blame the media for reporting news. When somebody does something that they shouldn't do, that's news.
I do know this, that when we start talking about this issue, and when you start describing these people and who they are, it will be very interesting to see, will it not, how the Islamic community, especially in their area, responds. Are there going to be protests? Are we going to see Islamic leaders speaking out and saying that these people were apostates, that they were doing something that was wrong, terribly wrong, and condemning them for it, and doing so loudly? Or will there be this continued silence, or just a muted sort of way of dealing with it? If you want to come into this country, and especially if you want to come in to do something very bad, you're not going to come in on anything that gives your name, your background, and all the rest of it. You're going to sneak into the country. So rather than trying to always find them once they get here, wouldn't it be a good idea? Don't you think we should do a little more to try to stop them from getting here in the first place? Whether the Islamic community in the area goes out, if there are protests in the streets.
They thought that they could go in and kill as many U.S. soldiers as they could.